Our next speaker is no stranger to Hood College. She is a two-time graduate of Hood with degrees in English and Human Sciences. She's a licensed therapist in the Frederick community who works with families and children who have experienced trauma. Please welcome to the tedx Hood College stage, Hood alumna Stephaine Miller.
Well, thank you. That was a warm welcome. I promise I didn't hire these people in the front. They actually did come of their own, choosing. So, there's always something about being on a college campus that makes me think of that really common phrase we hear in our society, if these walls could talk. These four walls are bearing witness to this moment right here, and I can't help but take it in. These four walls also witnessed me as an undergraduate student here at Hood. And I could put some flowery terms to it, but quite frankly, at that point in my life, I was a mess. It was one of the most vulnerable, probably the most lonely, challenging parts of my life. I felt like I had nothing to be upset about. This was my goal, this was my career. I was finally at a four-year college. I was so excited, and I was gonna be able to meet my career goals. But I felt like I was kind of hiding this really shameful secret. You see, my mental health was spiraling fast, and I was really convinced that there was no coming back from that. I thought that that was my reality. This was gonna be the rest of my life. This was gonna rule everything I did. There was no quote unquote normal life to be seen. This is what it was. Well, Hood, being the really supportive community that they are, linked me up with a really great therapist. And what he did for me, I'll always be thankful for. He normalized my experience without minimizing the feelings that went along with it. There was a situation where we talked about me going on medication, and I felt that that was the right choice for me at that time. And dealing with a prescriber was proving to be challenging because I was broke and I had no insurance. And this therapist advocated for me on my behalf. He went above and beyond and he made it happen, and I got what I needed. And for that, I'll always be thankful. So as our next time approached that we were gonna meet, I thought to myself, okay, I need to remember to thank him. This is a big deal. He went above and beyond. And so I remember to thank him. And of course he said, "You're welcome." But then he said something to me that I still remember really clearly. He said, you might find yourself in a situation where you could help other people in this situation. I looked at that man like he'd lost his mind. I was like, friend, I just got done telling you I could barely get out of bed to brush my teeth to go to class, and I almost didn't. I just got done telling you I couldn't get through my math tests last week because halfway through, my body just was so anxious. I felt like I needed to crawl out of my own skin, and I got up and left. I don't even know if I passed that class. I think I did. Anyway. So he said, no, listen, maybe not right now. And I'm not here to give you career advice, but the people who make the best advocates are the people who know what it's like to go through this. I wasn't bought in at that point. Not yet. But flash forward, I made it out of my undergraduate studies mostly unscathed, and most of my dignity intact. Not all of it, but most of it. Yes, you can laugh at that. And it was interesting, during my senior year of Hood, I took a couple of psychology classes. I started really thinking about my career and what I wanted. And guess what? I was like, ooh, social services, mental health. Okay, maybe this isn't such a bad idea, but I'm not gonna be a therapist. I'm damaged goods, I'm broken, I was too anxious. I have such a dark history with my own mental health. I've got my own baggage. Absolutely not gonna be a therapist. No, not doing it. So I worked for this local nonprofit once I got out of Hood. Undergrad, and my boss was incredible, but she also happened to be a licensed counselor. She was a wonderful mentor. She really helped me learn the different things that I wanted to do with my career, what my goals were, what would be a good fit for me. She was also known for keeping a really cool head in a lot of difficult situations, very even-tempered, under stress. Took a lot to ruffle her feathers. So I'm at my desk one day, minding my own business. Maybe I was working, maybe I wasn't, who knows. And she comes out of her office with like this authority in her body, and she stomps over to my desk, and I'm like, okay. Stephaine, and I'm like, yeah, yes? You put that application in, right? And I was like, what application? And I'm thinking I'm in trouble. I'm like, what did I do? We had talked a lot about going back and forth about me going into a clinical counseling program. And I started to come around to the idea, like, okay, maybe I'm not so messed up, maybe I can do this. So she's like, no, the counseling, the school application, be a counselor, all that? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna turn it in. It's due next week, I'm turning it in. She goes, good, you're gonna be a great therapist. And then she just turns around and walks away. I don't know what happened in that meeting. I don't know what kind of thing she was going through that day. I don't know. But she walked away, she shut the door, I'm at my desk, and I celebrated and panicked at the same time. On one hand, I gave myself an internal high five. I was like, yeah, she hasn't caught on. She doesn't know about my anxiety or depression. Ooh, you know, we can't say those words. She has no idea. I tricked her. I'm good. She's smart. I'm smart. All right. But then I panicked because I was like, well, somebody's going to find out eventually, and somebody's going to know. This lady, she's got some stuff going on. I don't know if she's cut out for this. I don't know. I was so worried that somebody was going to find out my secret. However, I also realized that my past couldn't define me, and it was time for me to recognize that the only person stopping me from reaching my goals was me. And it was time to get out of my own way. So I guess you're all shocked to find out I went to school to be a therapist, right? Yeah. I loved it. I learned a lot about myself and about the person I want to be. I learned about this relatively new concept at the time, generational trauma, and the stories that I held with me and how they made me who I am, and how that doesn't have to impact every decision and every motion I make. So I loved it. But on the other hand, there was a lot of talk about ethics and boundaries and professionalism. And to be quite frank with you, the information was very unhelpful. It was very contradictory. On one hand, they're saying, you know, you have to be professional, you have to have boundaries, you know, don't ever take food from a client, that's so inappropriate, okay? And then on the other hand, somebody's saying, well, no, you gotta think about cultural background, right? If somebody offers you food and you decline, that could be really insulting. And I thought to myself, what the heck am I supposed to do? Nobody's giving me clear answers about how to be professional, but we were supposed to be warm and empathetic and inviting. What? How can you do that if you've got such a wall up between you and anybody else in the world? How can anybody open up to you? How can anybody trust you if that wall is up so high? I don't know that I would. So, child psychiatrist Dr. Bruce Perry, he also did a lot of research on trauma treatment for children, and he talks a lot about the importance of the human relationship. And he says in one of his books, relationships are the agents of change. And he goes on to say, people, not programs, change people. And I said, okay, you know what, I could get behind this. Now this makes sense. So I went out into the counseling world, and I loved every minute of it. Well, most of them, you know. Every job has a bad day. I can't, you know, make this too flowery. But I went out there and I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna keep it real. I'm going to maintain professionalism. I'm not gonna do anything that's gonna harm other people. But I'm just gonna keep it real and cut the crap. And so I earned myself a little bit of a reputation of being unconventional. And I think that has followed me throughout my career, and I'm wearing that like a badge now, okay? I love it. Because what if you can be your authentic, genuine self without being unprofessional? What if you can let your clients know that you're human, and sometimes being a human is messy and hard? What if you can do that without taking away from their treatment, without making them responsible for your feelings, and without distracting from what's really happening here? What if it's okay for you just to be human and messy? I think it's worked. I think so. So I work with a lot of children and adolescents. They're my favorite. I have a soft spot for those teenagers who think nobody understands them because, oh boy, that was me. And I see this common story happen a lot. Parents will come to me, Stephanie, she's crying before school, she's got stomach aches all the time, headaches, we take her to the doctor, specialists, medicines, we were at the ER last weekend, we have no idea what to do. And they're telling us to come to therapy. Can you help us? You're not a doctor, I think she needs a doctor. I'm like, well, let's give it a whirl. Can't hurt. At that point, they've tried everything, so they come to me. And they're like, all right, let's give it a whirl. And then I meet with the kid. And it's the same thing. Stephanie, you can't help me. I'm a freak of nature. I've got some weird, incurable form of cancer that nobody's described or discovered, and nobody's gonna be able to help me. I don't know what to do. Nobody understands. Oh, kid, I've been there. So I do the human thing. I get to know them. I learn about them. We get to know each other. And one of the most gratifying parts of my job is when I can finally tell this young person, guess what? You're not dying. I have good news. And the sense of relief on their face. And they're like, okay, then what the heck is these stomach aches about? And I'm like, all right, listen. Good news and bad news, right? You have anxiety. Anxiety sucks. And I do. I talk to my clients like that. I'm like, anxiety sucks, okay? It will make you feel like you're dying. And what people don't understand about anxiety is it's not just worrying thoughts in your brain. It manifests in your body. And so these stomach aches, these headaches, all these other things are happening. This could be a result of anxiety. And I have good news. Anxiety is way more easy to deal with than some rare, incurable form of cancer that you think you have. And even better, a lot of people are going through the same thing you're going through. And even better is I'm going to help you through this and you don't have to go through that alone. Every once in a while, I get some resistance. Every once in a while, they look at me the way I looked at my therapist in college when he said I could help people. Whew, you know, what a concept. But eventually they buy in, and eventually I know that they're going to be okay. So I've got this young boy who comes in for therapy currently, and he's anxious. And I'm like, well, yeah, I know all about that. Very sweet kid. So one of his favorite things to do is we draw together. And going back to unconventional, it's usually us bare feet on the floor, music's playing, we're eating fruit snacks, we're just chilling, right? Human connection. So he will come in, we'll each get a piece of paper, and he picks some feeling words, and he writes them down. And then we each take turns drawing a picture about that feeling word, maybe something that's made us feel that way, or something that commonly makes us feel that way. Well, he picked nervous. I didn't know this young man very well, relatively new to him. And he draws his picture for nervous, and he goes, what about you, Miss Stephanie? I had a choice in that moment. I could make some fluff up about being nervous about something, or I could choose connection. So what he didn't know at the time is I was traveling in a couple of days for a work trip, and anybody who knows me knows I loathe flying. I love to travel, but I hate flying. And so in that moment I said, okay, I have a choice here, but I think I'm just gonna go for the authentic, you know. So I drew a picture of an airplane, and he's like, oh, Miss Stephanie, that looks like an airplane. I was like, yeah. You know, now I had to be careful here. You don't want to instill fear in an already anxious child, my friends, okay? Don't do that. So I said, you know, I drew an airplane because even though I know airplanes are safe, you see what I did there? And even though I know I'm going to be okay, you see what I did there? And my brain knows that flying is a safe thing to do. My body gets anxious. So I'm flying in a couple days and I'm feeling a little nervous about that. And he ponders this for a minute, and he looks at me and smiles, and he says, you know what, Miss Stephanie, it's a good thing you're a therapist. And I was like, oh, why is that? And he's like, well, you know all the coping skills. It's your job to teach that to other people. So you know all of them already, so you know what to do when you're feeling nervous, right? And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. And he goes, Miss Stephanie, you're gonna be okay. And he moves on to the next picture. Yeah. And I just stopped in that moment and I realized, yeah, I am going to be okay, and so is he. And I realized that he and I are both in different parts of our healing journey. We never stop healing. We never stop learning. If I waited for that moment that I was perfectly sane and perfectly healthy to follow my dreams, I don't think they would have happened. You have to do your own work, of course. I'm not saying just go out there and do whatever while your arm's falling off, right? But you can do your own work, and you can continue that and be a good advocate for other people. You can be the broken healer. That's okay. It means we get it. So I look back at him, and we're drawing our picture together, and I just think to myself, you know, he and I, we are going to be okay. We're both on our own journeys, and with our own stories to hold, and with our own experiences, and whatever the future holds for both of us, we will both, in our own ways, take flight. Thank you.